Good evening. It is Monday, February 19th, 2024. Welcome to episode 51 of Porterhouse and Teal Live. Joining me tonight is Rebecca, my lovely bride, who married me on this day some 35 years ago. So happy anniversary, Rebecca.
Happy anniversary. And we share it with all of you.
Yeah. And who says you can't meet a nice girl in a bar?
I don't know.
That's actually where we met.
So cliche-ish.
Yeah, it's weird because it's not like I was a bar fly. She's not a bar fly. It's just kind of a really like a random type of a thing. She went there with her girlfriend or whatever. And for whatever reason, I decided, I'm going to go down to this bar and have a drink. And we met there. I guess that was in 1988. Would it have been?
1987.
1987.
1987. And I went there because there were other employees where I worked, and they were actually the band that was playing at the bar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this picture that I have up on the screen is a picture that we took last year on March 16th, 2023. It's the day that we went and buried my father. And that's coincidentally the same day that my brother was born on. And we happened to stop by this particular bar. This is called the Jack London Saloon. And that's where we met
35 or 30, actually longer than that. 37 years ago.
30. Yeah. So that's where we met, and we decided to stop there and take a picture, which was kind of cool. And the town has certainly changed since I grew up there. That's where I actually grew up, and it's much more of a upscale type of a place now, which kind of sucks, but that's the way it goes. But happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
Yeah. So let's see here. What have we been doing around the farm this week? We've been pretty busy, I think. It's been a very wet week, and been doing a lot of indoor stuff in the last couple of days just because it's been so wet. And I actually was headed out to the gym this afternoon and happened to look up in the field at my sheep tractor and noticed that I had one of my sheep was out. And for me, that's kind of an issue. This particular sheep has gotten out before and been kind of sticking their head out and getting their head stuck outside of the tractor. And so I had to go up there before I wound up going out to the gym, and Rebecca and I corralled this little sheep up and was able to get him caught. But I will say that that's the last time that I'll have to catch that animal, because on Wednesday, I'm going to hook up the trailer and get him gone, because that's one thing I learned a long time ago, is that there's too many good animals out there to keep ones that aren't the best. And animals that don't respect their confines, in my opinion, have to go. So we're going to take them down on Wednesday and get that one out of here. So, it's been super wet. And, my main focus has really been on the fence removal project that I mentioned last week, and I had gotten a little bit further on, and I'm excited about redoing that particular part of my property, because it was really just intended to be a temporary fence that I put up, and it wasn't designed what the space is currently going to be used for, but it's actually been there for 20 years. And I would suspect, as well as the fence was constructed and the materials that I used, that it would probably be there for another 30 years. But I've just been inspired to start pulling all that out. And my grandson happened to come over last week and helped me. He was getting a little tutorial on how to run the backhoe, and he was taking that in.
A little boy's dream.
Yeah, he was pumped. But I like building fence. Fence building is something that I get a lot of actually enjoyment out of. It was one of the things that I did when I first bought this property, is wanted to get the perimeter fence established, and I did some cross fencing and put a lot of effort into that, and spent a lot of money on the materials, which would pale in comparison to what it would cost today to do that. But yeah, it's something that I did a lot with my father when I was a child. And so I guess that's why my hands look like they do. They're pretty tore back from all the barbed wire that we used to have to work, and I didn't use gloves and then all that. But yeah, we leased a lot of property with our cattle, and we're constantly out building fence on other people's property and chasing cows because they were always getting out and stuff like that. But yeah, I think one of the things that I did when we first moved in that I'm pretty glad that I did was I put in a lot of extra gates, and I did some really good things regarding the infrastructure as far as putting in additional water lines and things like that for later use. One of the things that I made a mistake on, or I probably would have changed had I had the opportunity. And so that's why I'm mentioning it now. If there's people that are listening and maybe you're developing your property or you're looking to buy a homestead or you're going to be doing this sort of work, I would just encourage people to put in fences and obviously plenty of gates, but the size of the gates should be something that if you're anticipating maybe adding a piece of equipment, that's one thing that I didn't do. And so I have some gates around here that were solely just for like walking through. So I can basically get a wheelbarrow through there, but I'm not able to get my tractor or any larger equipment in there. And I would say that that's something that I would encourage somebody to maybe consider doing, even if you don't think you're going to have a tractor. If you're putting in that infrastructure, make it large enough where you can get and drive a piece of equipment through. So that's kind of what I'm going to be focusing on as soon as things start to dry out. But man, it's just been hammering rain down around here, and it's kind of putting a kibosh on that sort of activity, right?
It is. We had a couple nice days. I was able to get out and kind of clean up in the pool, get it backwashed, get some chemicals in it. And now we're back to rain and the wind blowing, and it's back to what it was.
Yeah. Another thing that I think that I would have probably decided to do if I had to do it over is I would have definitely made the choice to get a tractor a lot sooner. And I'm just seeing the value of having a piece of equipment like that now, because it just makes so short work of things that would have taken you so much more time to do. And it beats your body down being out there swinging tools and stuff. And when you have the equipment, it's just a game changer. So that's one thing I would also, if I had to go back and do it again, I would, if I had to speak to myself from 20 years ago, I would have made that choice. Let's see here. Let me move this around here. Hold on a sec, guys. Okay. Another thing that we've been kind of working on this week is getting some waste streams. That's something that I always look at doing. It's something that it's one of the permaculture principles that I look at and think about a lot, and that's producing no waste. And I think that when you can source waste streams, it's just a great way to, in essence, put money into your pocket. Because one of the ways to increase your wealth is to make more money, but another way is to spend less money or spend nothing on the things that you actually need. So waste streams are like for the win for sure. On this fencing project, I've got to put in a few gates, and I had in my mind, hey, I'm going to put in this like cyclone fence type of a walk-through gate in this particular area. And I was able to score a damaged gate for free, brought it home, stripped all the wire off. And essentially, for those that are looking at the live stream right now, up on the screen is basically what I've been able to create from that waste stream. And if I were to buy something like this in Home Depot, a cyclone fence that's just like this, it would have probably cost me $120 to $130 is what they're running. So being able to find things like this and to repurpose them is great, because it not only keeps things out of the landfill, but it also, again, saves you a tremendous amount of money. That was one thing that I scored this week. And another thing that I scored was, let me put this up on the screen, some IBC totes. And IBC totes are great for whatever you want to use them for. But what I wound up using them for, as you can see here, is I basically just cut the tops out of them, and I decided to leave the rest of the container intact because it was still usable and pliable, and it's going to allow me to store things inside of this without those things falling through, the cage of the IBC tote. So that's super cool. I'm stoked every time I can find something like that and bring it onto the property and save ourselves a little bit of money. And right?
Yeah. Well, I was able to reuse a framed mirror and
right.
repaint it for our granddaughter, who, of course, her older sister got jealous when she saw it because she's been wanting a frame of her own. But it's the cutest thing because on her birthday, which was last night,
right,
she spent quite a bit of time in her new little dress in front of the mirror, just admiring herself.
Yeah. Yeah. So repurposed stuff is awesome. And we always try to look and find things that we can bring onto the property that we actually have a need for. And it's kind of like one of those balancing acts, because you don't want to just look at all this free stuff and bring it onto your property. And next thing you know, you have Sanford and Son and all this excess bullshit on your property. So it's just that balancing act of finding the things you actually need and being able to source them. I managed to bring a few more pallets onto the property, and that's something that obviously is going to be benefiting me now that I have some ability to palletize things and then just move those pallets around. So I was able to pick up some pretty sweet pallets. I've actually got a video that's going to be coming out probably in a couple of weeks, I think. But basically displaying my compost tea setup that's now a completely portable system. And that's as a result of a converted pallet and taking the compost tea brewer that I have and incorporating and meshing those things together. But there'll be a video coming out on that. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned in the next couple of weeks. We also get, stuff from places that we get to, excess food and stuff like that. We got a bunch of bread last week and a lot of coffee grounds and a little bit of produce. So those things all kind of go into helping just cut that cost and make things a little bit, better around here on the homestead. It just feels like a win. I don't know. It's not like we're completely dependent upon that, but every time you can save money in that regard, it just makes it feel like a win, especially when in the way that I'm thinking about those permaculture principles. It just kind of keeps you centered there and grounded.
Chickens love it too.
Oh man, everything loves it. All that bread. My cows eat bread. Sheep eat bread. Chickens, they devour the bread. So it's not the best form of nutrition, but it is carbohydrates. It is something that gives them some form of pleasure and enjoyment. Bread is kind of cool, right? We like warm bread with
I like
butter.
bread, especially with garlic butter.
Yeah, we do. We also too, one of the things I wanted to mention is I planted a storage squash. It's more or less a pumpkin. It's called a Marina di Chioggia. And I was going to provide a photo of that so you would be able to see it up on the screen. But the reason why I planted that is because what I was interested in last year is getting some more food that we don't have to necessarily try to either bring onto the, prepare, as far as like trying to can it or find a way to store it. And so I was interested in finding some storage squash. And unfortunately, I only got one of these to harvest because of the problem that I was having with gophers last year. And I would have gotten more off this particular plant. However, the plant got basically chewed off when this squash was still somewhat immature. It hadn't even completely grown to its full size and it hadn't ripened all the way. But I harvested it in July and we just ate it this week. And Rebecca made it for dinner. And then she used some of it in the eggs that we had for breakfast yesterday.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's a really delicious squash. Quite honestly, I'm going to be probably trying to get some more seed and planting that again next year, because I'm interested in giving that another go. But the coolest thing about it is that that squash had basically just been sitting in our kitchen for 7 months. And when I harvested it, it was kind of more of a pale greenish white-ish color. And then, yeah, almost like a bluish green kind of a color. And then it ripened over the course of those 7 months. And it, by the time she, I guess, started to prepare it, it had turned almost kind of an orangish, light orange color.
Yeah.
But how was it that you prepared it? Maybe you just kind of let folks know how easy that was, or whatever.
Well, I sliced it in half, and when I say sliced it in half, from the stem down, and scraped all the seeds out like you would a jack-o'-lantern, clean it all out, the stringy stuff and all the seeds and everything. And then all I did was simply sprinkle the top of it and the inside with nutmeg and cinnamon. And then I drizzled butter on it. And then in 400-degree oven, I put it in there and baked it for the recipe actually called for 60 minutes, but I baked it probably longer than that. I'm going to say I don't know, an hour and a half, maybe not quite that long, but yeah. Anyway, it came out really good.
Yeah. I think it was something that I would like to try again. It's almost a kind of a mild pumpkin-y flavor. And yeah, I just thought I'd throw that out there because from a food storage standpoint, from a survivalist standpoint, from a self-reliance homesteading standpoint, those of us that don't have a root cellar or a place that we can store calories like that, that's a total win. You just basically keep it in kind of like room temperature. You wouldn't want to store it someplace where it's extremely cold, or where it's going to freeze, or a place where it's going to be extremely hot. But I mean, 7 months ago it was harvested, and it tasted delicious eating it this week. So it's called the Marina D, which is DI Chioggia. So, yeah, I agree with that. Malus Mac. For every dollar saved, it's like $2 earned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true. Because to earn that money, you had to actually put out energy. But if you're just saving money, I suppose you could say that you had to put out energy to some extent. But when it's free, it almost seems like you didn't have to put out as much energy, right? So that's awesome. So we're going to jump right into Did You Know? And Rebecca came up with a Did You Know? And I don't know if I knew this, but what is the Did You Know?
Did you know for the modern Olympics, the flag was designed in 1913, and it was first flown in the 1914 Olympics with the color of blue, yellow, black, green, and red with a white background. And it was to represent the 5 continents that took part in the Olympics back then. And that flag is still flown today.
Yeah. 5 continents back in the day. Yeah.
It represented the flags of all those continents as well.
Right. Yeah,
those colors combined.
That's interesting. Yeah, the Olympics is kind of one of those things that I used to actually really look forward to as a kid. I don't so much anymore, I suppose. And I don't know, maybe there's other things that take my interest and draw my attention away from that. I'm not a huge sports guy or whatever, but the Olympics used to be something that I think a lot of us of my age used to really look forward to, because it was one of those things that only came up like every 4 years or whatever. And it was kind of a big deal, national pride and all of those sort of things. And I think we all kind of got into that back then. But I don't know, a lot of those organizations have gotten a little bit more woke these days. And I don't find as much enjoyment in trying to follow that sort of thing. But yeah. Hey, good evening, guys. Dean Mullis in the house. What's up, Bill Warner? How are you, man? Good to see you guys. Thanks for joining us. So we're going to jump right into some Q&A, and I had somebody asking. Let me pull this up, guys. Give me 1 second. Yeah, this person, SDCZ80G, says, nice compost. What breed of chicken are those white roosters? And I've had a few people ask that, so I figured I would address this. They're a Norwegian brown, and it's an interesting thing with the roosters themselves. They're white with kind of a little bit of a red feather thrown in now and then, a little bit of red under feather, but essentially they look like a white rooster, but they're just the male version of the Norwegian brown breed. The Norwegian brown hens are a red sex link hen, and they are very easy to identify at birth. So it's easy to sex those birds. And yeah, when you get them, you got the roosters are little white puffballs, and the hens are little yellow puffballs. So it's easy for them to identify that. But yeah, I'd had a few people ask that question, so I thought that I would address it. Had another person who asked, see here. Says, this is from Firefly Dreams 1791. Says, if I may ask, how did you cultivate the relationship to procure food waste or scraps like the fruits and vegetables? I have tried here in upstate South Carolina with many grocery chains, and the rest of this is cut off. So I can't.
I would say you have to be persistent. They're going to tell you probably no the first time or two, but you just have to keep going in and you have to keep asking them. Sometimes they're already committed to somebody else. So that's part of why you need to be persistent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. I basically had responded and let the person know, I fully understand that feeling, because we have the same feeling here. It's not like we just walk up to every place that we go to and we get a positive response. You have to actually work to establish these relationships. And sometimes, like Rebecca was saying, you have to, have some form of persistence and not just I'm not saying be a pain in people's ass, but you may need to revisit this at some point. Another thing that actually helps quite a bit is if you are patronizing these people, if they're used to seeing your face, if they're familiar with you as somebody who does business with you, then they're probably more likely to try to maybe reciprocate or help people out or establish that sort of relationship. There's a lot of different tactics that one can, kind of look at doing, and things you could consider. And basically, I'd pointed out to this person that I kind of had done a video on that topic, talking about how it is that we get, some of the relationships established. But there's ways that you can kind of think outside of the box too. Don't just go to supermarkets or stores, but go to delis, go to schools. Schools have lunch programs and things like that. I actually have tried that here. I got that suggestion from Jason out in Kentucky. He had been establishing some relationships like that out in his neck of the woods. That's not really where I live much of a thing that they're going to do, because they've already, the waste management company has already established that with the schools in this area. And unless it's a private school, you're not going to be able to get a foothold into that, because a lot of grant money has come through in California to these places to get kids involved in composting and growing gardens and stuff like that, which I fully support. I mean, if they're going to do that stuff in school, that's all the better. I think the sooner that they can get kids to understanding the value of not throwing shit away and taking something that is thrown away and turning it into something great is awesome. So I'm not opposed to that. But if you're maybe in an area like not California, you might have a better opportunity, approaching schools, approaching restaurants, going to food banks, going to places like that where they feed people. Food banks are usually the end of the road for a lot of produce and spent food, because they are the ones that are getting it from Walmart and getting it from all these supermarkets that go through and say, oh, well, this is something that we no longer use, or we're getting a new product, we'll ship this out.
Or it's quite close to their expiration date.
Or it's getting close to the expiration date, but it's still good. They're going to send that to a food bank. And then that food bank is going to basically be the last place that it goes. And so if you have pigs, if you have chickens, if you're a composter, if you're somebody like that. So again, I don't want people to get discouraged, because it can be discouraging when you hear no a dozen times, but it may take a dozen times for you to get that one yes. And so that's kind of what I tried to relay to this person. And I want you to know, on our end of it, it's not like it's just smooth sailing either. So don't get the impression that it's just like we're walking in the door and people are throwing food at us, right? It takes work and it takes effort. So
plus we have a grocery store that it's already committed to our waste stream. However, it's not always timely in emptying their garbage can. And so they have our number, and they will call when they start to get backed up and say, hey, can you pick this up? And we'll go and just load up the back of the truck.
Yeah.
So it's always kind of good to put out your arms everywhere. And
yeah. Let people know you're interested. Let them know that you're willing to work with the whatever situation they have, and just be grateful for what you do get. And I think that that's like something that I would, hope that people take away from that. Bill Warner says, I developed a shopping relationship with the grocery store before asking about getting produce. Yeah, that's kind of what we're saying. That's a great way to approach it, man. Like, let them know that you're not just there to get something for nothing. It's a reciprocal relationship. And when they see that you're willing to maybe spend money in their store, we had a store here that dude really pissed me off because Rebecca had went in and spoken with him and had asked, hey, can you, this is what we do. Would you be willing to allow us to get some of your spent produce, this and that? And then the dude told us that it was already spoken for, that he was giving it to somebody or whatever. Well, it turns out that guy was throwing shit in the garbage. He was throwing stuff in the garbage out behind his thing. And that's his right to do. It's his stuff. It's whatever. But, don't lie to people and tell them one thing and then do another, and then expect that you're going to want to patronize them with your business. So fortunately, that dude, he's no longer in business in town. The establishment has been bought by new ownership. And, but yeah, it's just stuff like that you'll encounter. So, what's up, Skanes girl? How are you? Good evening. Hope things are well, Cindy. Good to see you. Let's see here. Let's see what's up. Says Bill Warner says, I raised American guinea hogs 5 over a 5-year period and only drove 15 miles each way to feed my hogs for 5 years. That was in Oregon. Huh. Yeah. So you must have had some solid relationships, huh? Yeah, that would be awesome. Mm-hmm. Yeah, pigs will eat anything, man. And if you can get quality waste stream food to feed to them, I mean, that's where it's at.
I think we've discussed before, pigs are pretty fun to have too.
Oh, they're awesome animals. They are super awesome animals. Got a question here from Hilltop Blues. Says, how do you protect your hens from overhead predator birds, owls, and hawks? Well, owls and hawks, hawks are something we don't have a tremendous amount. I have seen a few Cooper's hawks in the area, and I've managed to get them out of here. The owls are really a nocturnal predator, and so our birds are up at night. We don't typically see or have problems with owls in the daytime. Now, if they were out at night, I'm sure these chickens would just be getting picked off left and right. But as far as aerial predators are concerned, one of the things that is of benefit to you is to have a rooster, and hopefully that rooster's excited about doing his job by protecting the hens by looking for those overhead predators. That's one of their primary jobs, is protection of the flock from predators both on the ground and from the air. And it's interesting to watch when you see those birds, like maybe a buzzard or something will kind of come into their view in low orbit, and they definitely will alert the hens, and all of the hens are pretty responsive to whatever it is they're saying, because they'll all run to cover. We had one of those little experimental crafts fly over, the little ultralights or whatever, fly over the other day. It was pretty low, and it wasn't something that's commonly seen. And so the rooster alerted the rest of the flock, and man, it was like clockwork. They just all bolted to the same spot and just ran underneath something. So that's one way that you can do it. Another way that you can provide that, and it's not really of much use right now, but all of the foliage has come off because they've all dropped their leaves. But in the summertime, that's a real benefit to have some kind of protection like that with canopy. And so where I have the chickens in the chicken yard, we've got overhead protection in that regard. When I don't have that, I make sure that they have places where they can seek refuge. And what I did initially when I first started that chicken yard a couple of years ago is I had plywood. I'd lean plywood up against things and pallets, kind of angle it so that the chickens could actually have a place to retreat to should they decide, hey, I'm being threatened right now. So I think that's really important. But I've yet to lose anything out here in the couple of years that we've been running them in the chicken yard. But yeah, it can happen. You just have to kind of be vigilant as far as that's concerned.
I think we're in and out of there enough during the day too, that it kind of distracts anything wanting to come in and land.
Yeah. What's up, Lionheart? Cool, man. Blessings from Texas Hill Country and our local food bank. Yeah. I went and I ran a race out there a couple of years ago. We drove out to Texas, and the race was in Hill Country, and that was a brutal race, man. 100 kilometers, and it was out at Camp Eagle, I think it was called, or something like that. But the race got canceled. It was a Bandera 100K, and it's usually run some other place, but that race had to be canceled, and then they moved it to Hill Country. But that first time I'd ever been out your way, and pretty cool spot, man. Welcome.
That's not when you slipped, is it? Prior to the race, we got out to take a couple pictures. I think that was in Texas.
Well, no, that was, yeah, it was. It was.
No.
Yeah, that was everything was all iced up when we were driving out there. Yeah. Oh, right on. I lived by camp. I think it was called Camp Eagle. So I'm not 100% certain, but it was like a camp, and it was pretty cool. Let's see where we're at here. So I had another question, and it was, let me pull it up here, guys, so I don't misspeak.
It's my job.
Let's see here. Okay, this was from Jerry Donnelly, 7910. And he said, interestingly enough, the flock of Novagens that we picked up based on your recommendation has not been docile toward one another. As a matter of fact, there have been 4 murders within the chicken flock, which came as a surprise to us. Yeah. If you want to take that out there. As a matter of fact, there have been 4 murders within the chicken flock, which came as a surprise to us. We are currently weeding out the aggressor to separate for a few days, and then we will reintroduce at a later time. Have you experienced this with your flock? And I'll just tell you what I wrote, and then we can talk about it a little bit. But I said, that sucks. I'm sorry to hear this. I have never had this problem, nor have I heard this from anyone else. There can be a number of reasons which can cause aggressive behavior, but this is usually caused by multiple factors, mostly environmental. I wouldn't profess to know your situation, but but I have experienced birds pecking each other until drawing blood when there's overcrowding. This also can occur if you reduce the feed, but it's usually associated with juvenile birds in my experience. I have had this, and it requires intervention with some sort of an anti-peck cream or lotion to eliminate this from birds cannibalizing each other. Chickens pecking each other to death is not common if chickens have plenty of room, plenty of food, and things to keep themselves occupied. I said, good luck. Sorry to hear about your luck. Thanks for the question, and I'll be addressing this on our next live stream. So chickens, like murdering other chickens, isn't something that's super common. Chickens pecking on each other to the point where they draw blood isn't uncommon. And as I said before, that usually, in my experience, comes from birds that are younger, that really don't know what they're doing yet. Because young chickens, they're just trying to figure things out, and they will peck at anything. And when they draw blood, they see that red blood, and then they start to taste that blood. And the next thing you know, they're just constantly pecking on each other. And that's usually, in my experience, result of overcrowding and boredom. More so than anything else, and I experienced that this year because, for one, we had overcrowding, but we also were reducing their feed consumption. We weren't just giving them free feed. And so that's going to have another thing. They're not going to be just sitting there pecking, eating. They're going to be in this overcrowded thing, and they're going to go like, well, I got to do something, right? We were letting them out daily, but if you didn't get to letting them out early enough, they would start to peck on each other. And so we had about half of our flock this year, the new Novagens that we got, about half of them wound up having their back ends all pecked up bloody. And one of the things that works well with that, they do make products that can help, like as a deterrent for that sort of thing. Couple of the products that I've used and tried, I'll talk about which one is, in my opinion, better. But the first is called No Pickin', and it's just a spray that you can spray on the animal, and it, in my opinion, that's the lesser of the two. Doesn't work nearly as well. The other one is called Pick No More, and Pick No More, in my opinion, is the superior choice between those two. It's a little bit, well, I will say it's a lot thicker. It's like it actually looks like this smoothie right here. It's thick like that, it's thick like a lotion, and it sticks to their feathers and it stays on much better. And I don't really think they much care for the way it tastes. And so if you had to pick one or the other, I would choose to do that. But, just know that the majority of those problems, at least with this particular breed, I can't speak to other breeds that may be more aggressive, because different breeds are going to have different aggressive tendencies and different, ways that they're going to behave around other birds. But currently I have those chickens. They're still in an overcrowded coop, but they're living harmoniously in there at this point, because they've figured out that, hey, I don't peck my neighbor or my friend here that I hang out with. I peck food. And so they've learned that at this point, but they're still I've still got 23 birds in 16 square feet. And that 16 square feet is not nearly enough when you should have 3 to 4, generally 4 square feet per bird. So that coop should really only hold about 7 birds, but they'll get it figured out. We'll sort that out as they age. They'll move themselves around and balance that out. But right now everything's harmonious in there. But that sort of thing can happen. Chickens will peck themselves, but for them to kill each other, I mean, I question, whether or not something wasn't intervened quickly enough. But if you're watching them every day, you're going to see that type of behavior, and you should be able to address it as it occurs. Let's see here. Okay, we're going to move on to the main topic of the evening, which is the end of artificial intelligence with a question mark. And I think that there will be an end to artificial intelligence, but probably not in the way that most people are thinking. What I'm referring to is AI becoming so much a part of our normal life, it will no longer even be referred to as artificial. It would just be considered intelligence. That's what I'm referring to. I think that the exponential growth um, that we're seeing, it's something that most of us probably did not see coming. I know I can speak for myself. I didn't feel as though things were going to progress nearly as quickly as they have. One of the latest things to come out that I heard about just this week, a lot of people are talking about it. It's a new AI text to video model called Sora. And that's something I wanted to talk a little bit more in depth about a little bit later on, but it's quite remarkable how fast that technology has advanced itself. And I think it's really indicative of just how many people are going to be put out of a job moving forward. Most people, I think, willingly submitted to this years ago when we allowed cell phones into our lives and we allowed these smart devices, really to be something that we, in many ways, are completely dependent upon. I thought it was pretty interesting. I watched an interview with Joe Rogan, and I think it was Rogan when Elon was talking about this, and he was asking him, kind of what the ethics, how ethical is what he's doing with regard to Neuralink, which is the implantation of technology into the brain.
Cyborgs.
Yeah. He was asking him how, where we are in that process and how ethical it was. And he basically had this to say. Here's a video.
Like, how much smarter are you with a phone or computer than without? You're vastly smarter, actually. You can answer any question. If you connect to the internet, you can answer any question pretty much instantly, any calculation. Your phone's memory is essentially perfect. You can remember flawlessly. Your phone can remember videos, pictures, everything perfectly. Your phone is already an extension of you. You're already a cyborg. Most people don't realize they are already a cyborg. That phone is an extension of yourself. It's just that the data rate, the rate at which, or the communication rate between you and the cybernetic extension of yourself, that is your phone and computer, is slow. It's very slow.
Yeah, that's something that is very true when you think about it, or at least that's my viewpoint of it, is that this thing does makes you vastly more connected and intelligent in a sense, because there's things that you really just don't have to memorize anymore. It kind of does it for you. And it's one of the reasons why I actually turned off spell check on my phone, because I used to always be a pretty good speller. But one of the things that I found out was that when you have spell check on this thing, it starts to do that for you. And then you start to lose touch with how to actually spell words. And I didn't like that. So I turned that spell check feature off on my phone so I could actually type things out and spell them. But obviously the younger generation, they could give two shits about that, because this right here is everything, right? Nearly every person on the earth right now has a digital footprint. And even the homeless people living on the street that can't afford it are provided a phone at no expense to them, but expense to all the rest of us that actually have a cell phone bill. Let's look at some of the ways that this handy dandy thing that we've allowed into our lives has changed how we view everything. There's no longer a need for a calculator. You don't have to have a dictionary. No need for encyclopedias. Remember those? Or even, how about a watch? Most people don't even carry a watch these days. They just rely on this device. No need for a camera. No need for maps, right? Remember, you used to go in the gas station and you'd see maps and
Pull out your map and
well, you'd have to learn how to read. Somebody'd have to be over there, navigating or whatnot. And you do the grid thing. That's like antiquated history right now. That's no longer going to be necessary. No need for an address book. No need for even a house phone. We used to have a house phone when we first moved here. We had 2 lines into this house, two house phones. And like idiots, we decided to cancel that. When we were doing some remodeling and stuff, I pulled all the wires out and whatever, and we canceled that. And then we started to say, well, man, we should probably try to get that. Like, I'd like to have a house line. I'd like landline, so I don't have to rely solely on this phone, which is listening to everything you say. Yeah, try getting a line established right now with one of these carriers. They're not so interested in trying to do that for you. At least that's been our experience here.
yeah, well, I tried.
I know.
And they said they couldn't.
Yeah. I don't know what it's like where other people live. I'm just saying that's been our experience. And so, yeah, no need for a house phone. No need for a computer even. This computer that's right before me. I mean, I essentially do everything that I need right on this phone. Because that little device, this Samsung S10 Android, which is about 3 years old, and it's now
obsolete,
outdated, and they're probably need to upgrade it. All of the things that I do with regard to my content is done on this phone. I don't do anything on the computer. All my videos are shot right on this phone. They're edited right from this phone, from apps that I have uploaded, and it's all done right here. And so, whether people want to admit it or not, I think that a lot of people are just as addicted to their device as I am. But I will tell you that a lot of you try leaving your house without your phone, and it just doesn't feel right. I know it doesn't for me. We've gotten to this point now where it's like, if you can't contact somebody, you freak out. But when we grew up, it wasn't a freak out when, you couldn't just like call somebody and they didn't answer the phone. So how did we get to that place? I guess that's a conversation for another day, but it's just a very interesting thing, I think. Those things are just the things that I named kind of right up front that I think we can all agree on. There's an app for everything that you would even want to do. If you want to have a compass, if you want to have a clinometer, if you want to have anything, just name it. And there's an app there for you to think for you, right? And it's
good. Oh, I was just going to say, I remember when I started running, and I would leave my phone at home, and that would upset everybody else. My son ended up getting me one of those bands you can wear around that you can slip your phone in, because he wanted to be able to call me
sure
whenever he wanted.
Yeah, I think that's where everybody's at now. We want that connectivity, that's all the good stuff about these phones, right? Those are all the things that we look at and we say, man, this is such a useful tool in my life. Even though we may bitch about, technology and all those sort of things, look at the list of things that we have by this one little device right here. Isn't that amazing? That's all the good stuff. But the fact is you can't turn this thing off. And then it's always listening to you, and it's always recording your data, and it's tracking your every location, your every spending habit.
Everything you said.
It's being recorded, yes. And it's, it's documented in such a way that maybe it's going to be used possibly later on. Who knows? But it's kind of spooky when you think about it. This device right here probably knows more about you than the people that are the closest to you. Think about that. And knows your purchasing habits, knows your search history. It knows your physical location at all times. One thing I found pretty interesting a few years ago, and this was kind of when it was first a revelation for me, I looked at my Google Maps, and it had a little icon that said home and then work. And I was like, how the hell does it know that? Well, I mean, it's like obvious, right? if you sleep, if this thing sits by you, it knows, hey, it's 3 a.m. and it's there every day, the same time. And then every morning it drives to the same location for, 8 to 10 hours, and then it returns. It's really easy to figure that out. Nobody has to tell it where, it tracks you wherever you go. And I just think that's an interesting thing, that we've willingly accepted these things into our life because of all of that convenience, but we know all the bad things that it can do. Your voice is constantly being recorded and listened to.
You're doing anything wrong. Doesn't matter whether you're the most ordinary person on earth, because that's how bulk collection, which is the government's euphemism for mass surveillance, works. They simply collect it all in advance in hopes that one day it will become useful.
Yeah, I mean, there's no secret there. He brought light to that for a lot of people that didn't know that, and it's only going to get more and more, I think, Orwellian. But this is something that we've wanted. I see where Bill Warner says that he has a flip phone. That's awesome, man. But you know what? At some point, that flip phone won't be able to be you won't be able to use it, because they're going to get rid of that old technology. 3G is on its way out if it's not already. They're getting rid of all those towers, all of those dumb phones that exist. They're going to be like nothing, man. So we can try to avoid that technology, but the reality is that it's coming. And if you want to have that connectivity at all, if you want to have a phone, you want to be able to be connected to people, you're going to have to upgrade. I know that it's kind of funny, because like when we were first coming up into the computer age, we were a lot younger, and our kids.
No, you weren't. I was.
our kids were, not old enough yet to be in school or whatever, or they were just starting school. And we decided, because I heard a lot of people saying, oh, computers, fuck that, man. I don't want to do that. And, people of my parents' age, they were very hesitant toward that, because, you figure you're, in the winter of life, right? And you figure kind of like, hey, maybe I won't have to deal with this sort of thing. But we saw early on that, hey, we should probably get a computer, because our kids are going to be exposed to this. We should probably so we got this old piece of shit from her mom. It was an old piece of crap, right? And this is like old school stuff where it's like dial up, and we're doing MS-DOS prompts and trying to do all that stuff. But then, of course, the technology increases to the point where it just makes it easy for the average person to just click on an icon. And that's now what we have with these things, because all the people that I've heard say that, oh, I'm hesitant of doing these things, they now have embraced this technology because it's there for you, and it just makes things, easier, I guess. I mean, even my mom is sitting there doing this, right?
And my brother Tom,
her brother, who was like, he was the same thing. Hi, look at me. I've got a flip phone. Aren't I cool? Look, I'm not embracing that technology. As soon as he got him an iPhone, dude, he's like every day.
he's in heaven.
Oh yeah, they're cool, man. I mean, it's cool to have that level of knowledge that you can seek out, and I just think it's an amazing piece of technology. Right on. Yeah, man. It's both are good. The flip phones, again, those are on the way out. 3G towers they're going to be gone. Angel Fire. What's Angel Fire, Dean? Hadn't heard that. Tim Riley. Yeah, man. Yeah, I get it. It's very, very useful to remain connected to people that, are in your network, people that are your loved ones, and just having that ability to research information and keep yourself informed, I think, is a really, really amazing thing. I think the only way that you can avoid being recorded from this, the only thing that you can really do is just not be in the room anywhere close to this thing if you want to say something that you don't want this to hear. I mean, that's the only real way. I mean, it's not like you can put it in a Faraday bag and think that's going to do anything, because all that's doing is it's blocking the cell tower. It still has a battery in it, and it still has the ability to record things. So the only way that you can ensure that it isn't not listening to you is just to not be around your phone. I think that this, technology that exists around mass surveillance it's really becoming more and more integrated into our lives. Many of you probably remember when we used to be able to go to a store and not have cameras recording everything that you do. But I actually kind of marvel at that sometimes when I'm out in public, and I'll just look around. I'll look at the stop line, when I'm at a stop sign, and look at all the buildings in that vicinity, and just, oh, there's a camera, there's a camera, there's a camera, there's a camera on the stoplight. And it wasn't that long ago we didn't have that, but it's everywhere. Every store you go into has multiple ways of recording what's going on. And, that's of benefit to some extent for security reasons for the business itself. But, what's the need to have them everywhere, just in broad daylight in public space? And why has that become the latest and greatest thing? I don't know. I just think that's an interesting thing that we've just seen develop. People used to freak out about their privacy. Oh, social security number. Why do I need to do that? And now everything that you have is willingly just given over. There's a new technology I wanted to show you that I came across that I thought was pretty interesting. And I think this is going to be something moving forward that we'll start to see a lot more of. And, just ask yourself the question, who's going to be using this technology? I can tell you right now, if the technology exists, I know who's already using it, right? The people that have the ability to surveil people and are, for whatever reasons, doing that. So here's some technology that exists. Take a look at it.
Video is causing quite a stir on the internet. It's showing one of the most controversial sides of AI. Let me explain. What you're looking at is AI-powered CCTV. It not only watches, but it also analyzes. For example, these are customers at a coffee shop, and it shows how long they've been there. Furthermore, it has the baristas and how many cups of coffee they've made in the last hour. It does this all in real time. It's quite Orwellian, isn't it? It's powered by MBVR technology, and it definitely challenges our privacy, puts a strain on workers, and blurs the line between safety and spying. I can't find any companies that are openly saying they're using this, but I'm sure if employees found out, things would not be pretty. I do have to admit that there are some beneficial features to this product. For example, if a repeat offender shows up on a premises, employees can be alerted right away, or cops can be called if someone shows up with a weapon on campus or a property.
So this is always the argument that's going to be used for this sort of technology, for people to just go, oh, okay, yeah, that's a great idea. It's going to be because look how beneficial it is to stop crime. But all the while, we are completely being surveilled with no permission given. But I guess you don't need to give permission if you're in public space. Skane's girl, my phone is not the boss of me. That's awesome. Yeah, I would concur. The phone's not the boss of me either. I will say though that it is something that I definitely don't leave the house without. I say it rarely happens. If it does, I'm like, so that's a shift in how I view technology and the way that I'm willing to allow it into my life. But it's something that goes with me. It's a part of my EDC, my everyday carry, is my phone. But I feel you on that. Phone is not the boss of me. Let's see here. Dean Mullis, man. We are starting to use VHF, UHF radios instead of phone for farm comms. Yeah, that's super good, man. I mean, if you can, communicate outside of the system that has the ability to just completely listen in on what you're doing. I'm assuming that if somebody was close by and they wanted to listen into that conversation too on UHF, they'd find a way to do it. But it's definitely not going to be something that's just as easy for them to do remotely. They'd have to really be targeting what you're doing or what have you. But yeah, many forms of communication is best, in my opinion. I think that it's always going to be promoted as, it's in the interest of public safety. And yeah, I don't know. I think that also moving forward, there's going to be just a plethora of jobs that we will see that will be replaced by artificial intelligence. I came in across just kind of a random article from November of 2023, and they listed, top 20 jobs that are likely to be affected. And I would just say this is kind of skimming the surface based on what I'm about to read, but give this some thought as to, who and how many people this may affect. Data entry clerk, telemarketer, factory worker, cashier, driver, travel agent, bank teller, accountant, customer service representative, paralegal, radiologist, librarian, market research analysts, journalists, retail salesperson, stock trader, human resource administrator, customer service representative. I thought I already said that. Mortgage underwriter and translator. Most of those are jobs that are kind of clerical in nature to some extent. I mean, they did say driver and factory worker and those sort of things, but a lot of that revolves around data collection and data entry and, maybe a little customer service, that sort of thing.
Which I would say some of that's already
it's
been taken over by AI.
Yeah, it's definitely been impacted for sure, I think, but we're only seeing just the surface being scratched on that. Most of the jobs that I think require some level of tactile dexterity or physical or manual labor have not yet been replaced. And I think that there's a lot of people who also think that their job is safe. And it very well may be in the short term, but I think with the way that they're actually automating things and building robots and doing things with integrating that with machine learning, it really can kind of give you a window as to what's on tap for the future. And yeah, I think things are just moving in that direction. I've seen it in airports where things are a lot more, you just don't have people doing certain jobs. It's all, you just punch it in now. And here's an example of something that just opened up. This is the first fully automated McDonald's restaurant.
McDonald's first automated restaurant with no workers, and I'm going to show you how it works.
So when you walk in, there's no one working at the counter, and you order whatever you want on the screen. Sometimes they have these robots going around bringing your food to you, and if you want to go through the drive-thru, you just order ahead online. Then just pull up to this special lane in the drive-thru, and this is how they deliver the food to you. So what do you guys think? Do you like this new system or no?
Yeah. You would think that like making a hamburger would take a person to do that. You would think that sort of thing, that kind of a job would maybe be a little bit safer, but we're already at that stage. We're already there, guys, where we're starting to see this sort of thing roll out. And a few years ago, they were talking about automated vehicles and self-driving big rigs and things like that. And I was a little bit skeptical at the time, just thinking, oh man, come on, that's not going to work. Well, these corporations have already purchased a lot of those vehicles from Tesla, big rigs, right? And we're talking these major corporations like Coca-Cola, like Walmart, like UPS, big businesses that have a lot of trucking, and they're already rolling out and trying some of those technologies. And really the only thing that limits that technology from being fully implemented is just the level of connectivity and the bandwidth and all that sort of thing required for that technology to work. But once it does, it's going to be kind of interesting, man. I didn't think that it would ever happen in my lifetime, but now I have a much different opinion on that. I think it's going to absolutely happen in my lifetime. And I would say that it's going to be upon us, things like that, easily in the next 10 years. That's just my prediction based on what I see coming, because I'm not one of these people that's going to bury my head in the sand and say, oh, that'll never work, when we're seeing the things that we're seeing in today's society right now. It's just very interesting. Bill Warner says there is no privacy in the world anymore. Let me start over. There is no privacy in the world anymore. I carry my phone generally for a means to communicate with my wife. I tend to leave it in the house for the most part. Yeah, that's, I think that a lot of people probably do that as well. Yeah, I don't know. I used to be a lot more sensitive toward it, I think, as far as this thing listening to me. But I'm not giving two shits, man. I again, at least at this point in my life, I have nothing to hide. They haven't outlawed expressing yourself openly in your own home. So I'm going to continue to do that. And this technology, unless I'm talking about something that I don't want anybody to know about, I'm not going to really worry too much about it,
I take it with me, but generally wherever I go, I leave it in the car. Once I get there, so it knows what parking lot I'm in, doesn't necessarily know what store I'm in.
Yeah. Yeah, well, see, you should carry it, because when I call and she doesn't answer, I freak out. It shouldn't be that way, huh?
See, I could leave it home and I'd be okay with
Yeah,
it.
yeah. I stand by what I said. I think that, if the internet went away, I'd be completely fine with that. If we went back to the way it was in the 70s, communication-wise, I'd be completely cool with that. I think it would, but it's not going to happen. So, it says, I'm assuming AI will not assist me in herding sheep out of my neighbor's front yard. That's probably true. But yeah, I don't know, man. Yeah, I've often given it some thought about the different industries that will be affected. And I think I spoke to this to one extent in another broadcast, but I just think that just because you're in an industry that you think always should not be affected, there's a lot of supporting cast in different various positions that make that team run. And so those people that are working in support of the other things that are going on in an industry are on the chopping block. And so it's just really, it's going to affect a lot of things. But I don't think they're making, Elon Musk hasn't decided to get a sheep herding, battery powered solar, shepherd or anything yet. But not saying that wouldn't be out of the question, man. He could do it.
Probably so. Throw that suggestion out there to him.
They could definitely do it. Yeah, AI is actually, yeah, man, it's so exponential. It just blows me away. It just really does. I saw a video. In fact, my son had sent me a video from somebody, Marcus Brownlee, I think is his name. He's a tech reviewer, and he had his 2 cents in on this new text to video open AI program called Sora. And it's so lifelike now. And the thing that's so interesting, it's almost hard to distinguish reality from something that's actually computer generated. It's just not clunky any longer. And I'm going to show you 2 videos, one of this actual technology, and then the other one I'm going to show you of what the technology looked like a year prior. And so let's check this out.
Today's a crazy day in the history of humanity, especially for those who are excited about AI. OpenAI just released the Sora model, which is our text-to-video model. You can see some of these examples here of the high-fidelity videos that are being generated just from a pure text input. And you can see the prompts down at the bottom here. It's the woolly mammoth video that's been generated just from a text input, and this video has been synthetically generated. This model is early. This is a sort of showcasing some of the research work that's happening, so it's not available today. You can't actually try it out and use it. But over on Twitter, Sam Altman, our CEO, is testing out some of the prompts that people are sending and actually generating new videos using Sora and sharing them on Twitter. So if you want to go and check out some of the cool stuff, go follow him on Twitter. Go.
All right, enough of that guy. So it might be kind of hard for you to really see that, and particularly if you're somebody who's just listening to the audio of this broadcast and you're not actually looking at the screen. But I would encourage you, if if you're interested at all, go and just look that up. But it's called Sora. But it is incredibly realistic and lifelike. And the interesting thing about it is all they really did was just put in some text about what they wanted to generate. So that one image or that one video where you saw that lady walking down the street and there's, neon signs behind, that's all that they typed in was, lady walking in, I think it was Japan or something like that. Japanese lady walking at night in Japan with neon lights in the back where it had just rained. And it brought that up. And it's just incredibly lifelike. And unless you were actually looking for any of the discrepancies in that, you really wouldn't be able to pick it up. And the interesting thing about it is that just a year ago, this is what the best technology looked like. And this is like, for anybody just listening, I mean, it's like cartoonish in comparison. So I'll just roll this so you can get a glimpse of what it looks like. This is a video of Will Smith. I think they typed in Will Smith eating spaghetti. And it it's maybe hard for you to tell by this, but if you were to see it now the video you're seeing is what it's currently it's currently looking like on Sora. There's that picture again of the lady and just the incredible amount of detail and how vivid everything is just in 1 year. And I think the important thing to just take away from this is just understand that this technology this is the worst that it's going to be. Think about that. So that's the worst that it's going to be. It's only going to get more realistic, more lifelike, and then it's going to be available to more people. So what does that do to all of the industries that we know of today? What does that do to the movie industry? What does that do to any of this sort of thing? I don't know. What do you think, Rebecca?
Yeah, I think you're going to find a lot of people out of work. And it's personally, I find it kind of scary because it's really taken creativity out of people's minds. I mean, if you can just type something in and that comes up, and it also, writes for you what it is that you want to put out there. It's very difficult to distinguish between real and not real.
Right. But see, I think that's what we have wanted, right? As much as we're sitting here saying we don't want that, it's actually what we have wanted. We've expressed this for years. If you think about it, right? Think about Star Wars. That was total fantasy. That was bullshit. There's no starfighters flying through the air with Darth Vader and lasers and all this. That's like fantasy. We wanted to see that. The difference is that many people worked for, I don't know, months, maybe years, developing that technology. It was all stop motion and it was done with, models, little tiny models. And then they blew it up on the screen that made it look, just amazing. And that was just incredibly well done at that time when it came out in 1977. But that's what we wanted. All that shit you see like Pixar, right? Mm-hmm. Toy Story and all that, when that technology came out, that was a lot of people that worked to make that happen. And everybody went to the movies and they got the videos for their kids and, oh, look at this, look at that. Isn't that cool? We got all these little creatures running around and isn't that neat? All the computer generated action scenes that we see in movies, right? Spider-Man and all the Incredible Hulk, and they're doing all this stuff that's completely fake and unrealistic. That's what the public said that they wanted. Now they've got this technology where I can create that. You can create that. Anybody who buys this technology can create that.
Well, I think not only are you going to be attempting to fool people who are watching it, you're fooling yourself.
Are we?
You're fooling yourself into thinking that is real. I guess it's going to be real.
Well,
I mean, that will be reality because that's what you'll be watching.
right. Just like you said, that it's all manufactured. So is all of the intelligence that people think that they have because they can just go to here, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is all, it's just a natural progression of where things are headed. And it's a very interesting thing for me to think about, because on one hand, I think people have a problem with this sort of technology, or at least they say that, but in reality, they're using it and it's upon us. And so I don't know, there's going to be a lot of people, man, that are going to be out of work. And I, like I said, I've said it before, I don't have I could give two shits about all those people in Hollywood because they kind of piss me off anyhow, and it's now things are a problem because they're affecting them, but they have no problem when they can point the finger at other people and laugh at them and mock them. But now they're getting some shit happen to them. And then, too bad, we're out of a job. Well, yeah, I guess so. I got no sympathy for that. But at the same time, I think that, I have personally mixed feelings on all of this. I'm somebody who would love to see things kind of return more not so digitally connected.
Yeah, I think that it would help people come back to their own creativity and use their brain,
Mm-hmm.
because in essence, you don't really have to use your brain.
Right. Yeah.
It's just going to be some matter up there kind of rotting away.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I do feel as though I agree with you on that sense, but I also am excited, really, quite honestly, about this technology moving forward, because for one, I'm not going to stop it. I'm not going to do anything to, if I decide to not use this, right? If I decide to not use the technology that exists, I'm only harming myself. I'm only disadvantaging myself. I'm not going to take a stand to say, well, I don't like this, so I'm not going to use it. Because guess what? Nobody fucking else is. If everybody else did too, I might be with you. But that's just the reality of it. So why disadvantage yourself and why get butthurt? And I'm not saying you're butthurt. I'm just saying in general, people shouldn't think about it in the terms of like, well, I'm going to shy away from something that can possibly benefit you.
Well, you're not going to get away from it.
No. So I'm going to embrace it. I'm going to embrace the change and use it to, my advantage while I have the opportunity to do so. And I think that's really the best way to approach it, at least from my viewpoint. What do you think?
Well, I think it's also just going to, like the new homes that are being built,
Mm-hmm.
they're smart homes. And so you can't buy just a TV anymore. It's a smart TV or a smart refrigerator that's going to tell you what you need to get at the grocery store. It's kind of ridiculous. You should have to put in a little bit of work.
Yeah. Let's see here. Lots of new YouTube channels seem to be using ChatGPT. Yeah, I don't know to what extent. I know that YouTube has a lot of concern about creators and to what extent they're going to be using artificial intelligence to assist them in making their content. I will tell you this, that I have a program that I use that uses artificial intelligence. And what I use it for is it helps me write descriptions, right? The description for my video or the title for my video or some shit like that. I don't really use it for scripting. I don't use it for anything to do with making my videos. That's all kind of coming from me. but I'm going to use technology that's out there that will assist me in, making my life easier, because that's one of the sticking points of content creation for me is title, and thumbnails is difficult too, but title and description, that wastes a lot of fucking time sitting there thinking about what do you want to write about something. But you can just type in a few like keywords and it'll kind of basically put it into some kind of a cohesive format, and then you can manipulate it from there if need be. But
of course, he tells you this, and half the time he's like, "No, I don't like what they said."
well, that's true, because I mean, I don't like sounding like a fucking robot. I'm not here to try to just, rubber stamp my content. I put some thought into it. And again, I'm not using it in that sense, but I know moving forward, they're going to have a challenge trying to figure out, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. The cool thing about that Sora is that, you can basically type something in. So I was thinking you could basically type in, like I could be sitting here and I could type in, sunrise to the east of, 50 miles east of Mount Lynn or whatever mountain happens to be, out my window, and say I want to look, like a black cow in the pasture, and I want it to be green pasture or whatever, and then see what it brings up. It might in fact bring up what actually looks like out my window. That's what's interesting to me. So
I think that's scary.
yeah, a lot of this stuff is scary, the whole satellite systems that are up there with cameras that are looking down that can zoom in on everything that you have is scary, kind of, I guess. But it's nothing that we're going to do to stop that. It's here to stay. And I'm not going to be somebody who is, not willing to at least use it to my advantage. Let's see here. Texas Republic Co-Farm Halfstead says, when I'm not building out my homestead, I work in this industry, and in my humble opinion, will not be as bad as many folks think. Will some jobs change? Yes. Much like the printing press. Yeah. So you don't think that there's going to be widespread disruption in the workforce? That's kind of what I'm getting from what you had just said. Yeah, I take that with, as your opinion as somebody on the inside. So, but we'll just, I guess, have to see kind of how things transpire. I do think that there will be a lot of people losing jobs. It's just, I think, inevitable. Dean Mullis, man, you're killing me. 2 8-tracks fit in a 308 pouch. Coincidence? I think not. 8-tracks.
I tell you, my first car had an 8-track player.
Yep. Yeah. Let's see. It says where AI will have a negative impact is the content would move opinion or drive social and cultural views. This is because the people writing the algorithms are mostly left-leaning. Yeah. I don't really know how things are going to, play out. I think it's something I'm really interested in seeing play out. And I think that it's happening so extremely fast that I'm going to have the opportunity to see it play out. Whereas a lot of people in years past, it took a lot of things, a lot of years had to go by to make certain technological advances. But when you look at the change in that text to video model just from 1 year ago to where it is today, it's pretty hard to imagine that things don't exponentially get to the point where everything is going to change, with everything, surveillance, all of that sort of stuff. So you have any final thoughts, Rebecca, on all this?
Well, I was going to say something that's actually not on this topic, but more so on last week's topic,
Okay.
is that my mother-in-law sent me a cherry cheesecake for Valentine's Day. It's so sweet. And it had a heart in the middle of it. And I took a picture of it and I sent it to her. And apparently the heart was not the color the picture was that she ordered it from. And when I was able to get in touch with her, she says, I just gave it to them. I just let them have it. And so we got a second one for free.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It was cute because she's not a lady who would normally do that.
Yeah. Bless her heart. Bless her heart. But as we were talking about, it's like when you get older, you just don't care anymore. You know, you say what's on your mind, and you know, that's kind of just a natural progression, I think, in people's lives. You stop, worrying about if you're hurting somebody's feelings as it relates to that sort of thing, So bless her heart. And I thank her for that. That was very sweet of her to do that.
Very sweet and a very delicious cheesecake.
I think we've got a little bit more, and we might hit some of that after dinner, right? Right. Yeah. Okay, guys. Well, I think we are going to bug out. I hope you enjoyed tonight's episode. And, remember, you can catch the rebroadcast on this live in the audio format on Spotify, Audible, iHeartRadio, and Google. And thank you again for everybody showing up in the chat, and really appreciate it.
Thank you. Love seeing y'all. Have a good evening.
Yep. Go out tomorrow and try to be better tomorrow than you were today. Thanks again, guys.